Hi, I'm Miranda Kwok. I'm the executive producer and series developer of The Cleaning Lady.
Awesome. So Miranda, tell me about the show for those who don't watch the show or don't know anything about it.
So essentially, it's a story of Tony, who is this whip-smart Cambodian doctor who comes from the Philippines to the U.S. in search of a bone marrow transplant for her son. But when the bone marrow donor backs out, she's left with the choice. Either she can go home, where there are no resources to save her son, or she can overstay her visa, and start working as a cleaning lady with her undocumented sister-in-law, Fiona. But then she ends up in the wrong place in the wrong time and ends up cleaning for the mob.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like a very dramatic kind of show, but we actually got a chance to talk to the stars, at the beginning of the season. I think a couple episodes in, and there seems to be like a little bit of, I wouldn't say like hardcore comedy, but there's some lighter moments in the show as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of fun in this show, and especially with Tony and Fiona. They're so amazing together. They play off of each other really well, and they instantly had a bond. They instantly had this sisterly bond, and so we have a lot of fun with them on the show, and how they navigate their situation in Vegas, and it's a lot of fun to be had in Vegas as well.
And tell me about like the stars of the show. You have a pretty good cast on the show as well.
We have an incredible cast, and Elodie Young just blew us all away when she first auditioned, and she has continued to blow us away since. She is so nuanced. And so multi-layered in her performance, and also just so honest and real. So every emotion that she feels, so that you see it because every take that she does is different, because she's really just living in her truth. And then we have Martha Milan, who is also incredible and so much fun. And she can tap into this endless well of emotion and just deliver take after take. I mean, there's a lot of directors say when you have an emotional scene, you start with a person who's delivering the emotion because you don't want them to run dry. But everyone knows with Martha, like, oh, she can keep giving it. So often they'll start with the other person, and she will just keep going. Oliver Hudson is a hoot. He's a whole lot of fun. He's so charming, and he brings so much of his own charisma to the role as well. And he'll ad-lib lines here and there, but they're like zingers, right? They're so sharp and so clever. So he's so much fun to be on set as well. And then of course Aidan Canto, who honestly he is the bad guy with the heart because he has such a good heart. And you just see that really, that it's real, it's genuine. It comes out of him, and that is a part of his truth. And I think that's why a lot of people, do gravitate to him as well. He really is that strong, silent type, but also very compassionate with a lot of heart.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of already mentioned it, but the series kind of draws upon a lot of very like heavy kind of topics. There's like the immigration factor, and then there's also the health stuff. I mean, talk to me about how you're able to kind of weave all these really hard, difficult topics to discuss, and throughout the series.
I mean, the immigration themes, the themes about healthcare and the challenges of getting healthcare, are all things that really are important to me, and that really drive the show. To me, that's the reason to do the show. But at the same time, we're able to have this really fun, dynamic crime drama. And so we are able to sort of, give a little candy with the medicine, right? And interweave these stories. So it's more like a Trojan horse, so that we're able to dig into these topics and issues, but in a very entertaining way, and a way that actually touches you emotionally. And so that's really the heart of it, is that we're able to tell stories that really speak to people and really resonate. And then I think when people can really feel empathy and compassion for these characters, then they can really take in these stories as well.
And I mean, I'm Asian, and so one of the things I love about the show is that you have an Asian lead, and there's so few. I mean, I think it's only one of like maybe 2 or 3 tops that's on like network television right now. Talk to me about why it was important for you to have that as part of the show.
Well, I mean, having that representation obviously is really important to me to put a different perspective that we haven't seen before, right? And I think that's also what's exciting about it, what's interesting about it, is to just delve into, a different culture that hasn't been, overexposed on television, but also just to build, again, build compassion and empathy for these characters. It was especially in this time where we, as a community, as an Asian community, are, going through a lot of challenges and dealing with a lot of ignorance and biases out there. It was more important, I think, more than ever, to build compassion and understanding for these characters, and being able to show that these are multidimensional characters. To show that they have hopes and dreams and fears, and they face tragedies just like everyone else, is a way to just really show their humanity and get people to understand that we are all more the same than we are different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important, like you said. It's, I think that's kind of one of the refreshing things I've noticed. Like, I was at the opening night red carpet, and, you saw all these sort of like different faces, different types of people, different stories they're telling. That's like such an important thing. For television to be able to kind of showcase, what is it about like TV that you feel is such a great medium to kind of tell these stories? I mean, obviously in the movies or whatever, but do you feel like it's just because people can relate to it more personal, or?
Yeah, well, in television, you have a little more time to really tell the fuller story, to really, show an arc of a character and show their journey. And so I think that's really important. That's definitely one of the things the medium of television gives us. But the other thing it does is that it's accessible. When I was first developing the show, I thought I would be pitching it to cable and streaming, because that's where stories like this normally land. Because they're marginalized voices, because they're different perspectives, they're not usually considered mainstream. But when I was like towards the end of the development, Warner Brothers said, like, there's actually a greater appetite and audience right now in broadcast television, and we think we should pitch this to networks first. So I was like, okay, like I don't want to change the story. This is the story I want to tell, but sure, like I'm open to that. And so we did. We pitched the 5 networks. Fox was the first. They picked it up right away, without hesitation. And again, they were really excited to get a different perspective and to have an authentic voice to tell that story as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's so important for people of the community to tell the stories of that community, I think, just because we have those experiences and are able to.
Yeah. And then at the same time, even though it is a Filipino-Cambodian family at the core of the show, and that's the heart of the show, I just heard from Nielsen that the statistics show that 90% of the audience is actually non-Asian. So it's really proven that there is a broad audience who is open to hearing these stories and wanting to hear these stories and excited about it.
Yeah, and just like you were saying earlier, that like it's a relatable story regardless of your background or where you're from or what you look like and all that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely, it's it's a universal story at the core, and that's again what speaks to people. It's a mother fighting for her son. It's people trying to do anything they can for their families. It's about sacrifice. It's about love, and all these things are things that speak to all of us and our humanity. So I think that's what's really resonating with people and touching people.
all right, well, we already talked about most of the kind of heavier topics, so why don't we get into the actual show now? And I feel like going into the new season, we're kind of on like almost, I don't know if you want to say like cliffhanger, I guess, or it's a little bit like tell people where we are now heading into season 2. Or what you can tell us without giving too much away.
Right. I mean, a lot of the first season was about Toni doing anything she can for her son and trying to, find a health solution for him and navigating so many different challenges to do that, navigating healthcare, but also navigating the mob and navigating the FBI and being, sort of caught between the mob and the feds, and how is she gonna get out of it, or is she? And so the season finale sort of is a culmination of all that, of all these pressures bearing down on her, and then her trying to figure out how she does get out. And so that's kind of where but at the same time, while she's navigating all these things and all these pressures and the mob and the feds, is that she took her eye off the ball, which is her family. And because of that, her family gets ripped apart at the end of season 1. So part of it is the challenge of how she's going to put her family back together. And most of the drive of season 2 is how to protect her family, as of course more forces are going to, that are going to be against her, and she's going to be thrust against more challenging situations.
Yeah, it's setting up to be like a really exciting, crazy kind of season 2.
Yeah.